笛か怪我か選んでください。笛で決定。いいでしょパトリック。
隊列を整えろ。迎撃準備だ。
やってしまった。敬語を忘れてた。しかも呼び捨て。
Choose injury or dot horn. What a fantastic episode. Villainous 99. Like, there has yet to be one episode, my friends, that I am not truly entertained by. Like, this episode was effing hilarious. From our boy Patrick rizzing our girl up to Yumelia basically becoming a little bit of a villainess herself and like really showing her colors. She was like, choose, your soul is mine. Choose, do you want injury and heals or do you want the horn? And the whole class is like, the horn. Oh, it's so good. Such amazing and effing hilarious moments. Like, this show is just so good. And on top of all the comedy, right? So we have the comedy that's happening this episode, and it's funny, okay? So we have the comedy that's happening. It's funny stuff. And on top of all of that, one of the things that this episode made me realize, too, and I want to make sure that I kind of convey this because this came into my mind, then it just left, but it just came back. This show, I think, really does represent how a lot of us, you know, and me personally, I don't have this type of personality, but I can imagine how a lot of real people would really struggle being isekai into another world. Most of the times you see like, you know, boy was isekai'd, had no bitches. After isekai, lots of bitches, right? Or, you know, girl isekai'd, or, you know, it's like, or something like, you know, ugly girl isekai'd, you know, now she has harem of men or something. Like, it's always that story. And typically those stories really don't always do a good job of representing, even though you change your body, you don't change yourself. Now, in some stories, you know, the person, you know, maybe they were this, you know, fat dude or really ugly dude or this ugly girl, or, you know, they always show girls with like glasses and, you know, messed up hair, which apparently that's an ugly thing, but they represent them that way. And then they get isekai'd into this body, you know, when it's not not when it's not like a reincarnation, but it's like they get isekai'd into this body or born into this, you know, body. It's beautiful and nothing like what they used to look like before. And, you know, maybe they suddenly get confidence and they change your race. But for the most majority of folks is like, you can't really change who you are. And where I'm going with this is Yumelia here was an awkward girl in her past life. And even though she has all the knowledge of this world, like a really good understanding of, you know, Yumelia as, you know, what she ended up being and the Demon Lord and Alicia and the harem of guys, and she has a really good grasp. This is one of her favorite games that she played. Like, she has a good idea. But more often, I was going to say most, and then I said more, and it ended up being more often than not, she has internal dialogue always running with herself, but she can't verbalize it. And that's something that's inherent to who she is as a person, is that she's awkward. And she, you know, I think if she were to verbalize what she thinks most of the time, she would get probably more of what she wants, which is like, you know, friends and, you know, not being such an outcast. And yeah, she's powerful, but she's not going to hurt anybody with this power, you know, but she can't really verbalize it. So in a scene, this episode where she's getting just not ostracized, but getting like yelled at and talked down to by the prince. There's another word for it. My brain's not working. You know, she's quiet. She didn't say anything. She just allows him to speak and yell at her and say a bunch of stuff that's untrue, and she doesn't like. She's thinking like things like she's like, no, that's not true. Or it's like, I don't know what this guy's on about. Like she's thinking about stuff, but she's not verbalizing anything. And in one portion of your brain, you might think, oh, well, she's not being combative because she doesn't want to be the villainess. But on the other side of my brain, it's like, well, her brain doesn't work that way. She wants to say, oh, no, that's not. She wants to say these things, but because of just who she is as a character and as a person before and now, it takes more effort for her to actually say stuff. So this Patrick guy comes in and he's like her knight in shining armor, type of deal. And he says this is not like, this was not the case. Is like, she's not, this wasn't a bad decision. And she's like, well, maybe it was a bad decision. She's like, yeah, it was a bad decision. But again, she doesn't say that out loud. She's just thinking it. And, even when she talks to Patrick later to thank him, she's like, thank you. And she smiled a little bit. But again, she's having all these internal thoughts, but she's not really able to say like, she was like, oh, I was depressed. And instead of saying like, oh, well, I thought I finally made a friend and I was just afraid of losing the one friend. And I got a little depresso about it. She doesn't say that, but that's what she wanted to say to him. And I think if she were to say that to him, he'd be like, oh no, he would tell her like something like, I get it, and I think that's what she needs. Circling all the way back to where I started this is, I think she is underneath the undertones of this being just, a funny anime and her being OP and dealing with that and the decent enough plot of the Demon Lord and stuff like that. Undertone is like a really good representation of a normal teenager who didn't have it figured out, who was going through their awkward teenage years and who was already an awkward person or, kind of like a not social butterfly person who was going to figure it out eventually, but then died and got isekai and had to go through childhood again. So like a lot of isekais you see, it's like, oh, well, you have this, 25-year-old office worker girl or this 30 or 40-year-old, man who died or something. They went through those awkward years and became an adult. Now, were they successful adult? Were they still like a NEET or whatever? Sure. But they went through the phase. Maybe they didn't fully come out, but they went through it. She never went through that, so I just think that's really cool. And I just wanted to point that out. And I know I spent most of the video kind of talking about that, but I thought that was really a good point to point out, is that she's still a teenager at heart, even though she's lived, 2 times the life and she's lived the amount of years of an adult, but she never got to be one. So she never kind of got to get out of that. So I hope now with dealing with Patrick and having a friend, she begins to kind of come out of her shell, because I think part of it is necessity to ensure that she's not seen as this villain and risk and plight to the kingdom as she's being depicted as for a lot of people. So anyways, Villainess 99, awesome anime. Love it so much. And maybe I went deeper than I should, but I thought it was really good. So I'll see you next week, my friends. Let me know your thoughts. Comments down below. Peace.